Welcome everyone to the Women's Association of Hilton Head Islands author series for July. Today is July the 8th, and we have another best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author, Mary Alice Monroe. You might remember that she was our inaugural author in May of 2020. Well, she is back with a new book called The Summer of Lost and Found. And she actually wrote it during COVID, and it takes place during COVID. So it's a very fascinating read novel. We're excited to talk with her in just a moment, but welcome. And until everybody signs on at 5 o'clock, we will meet Mary Alice. But until then, we always like to get to know you and have you participate. So I'd like to bring Janet Porter in, and we will have our polling again and ask you some questions and get you involved. Hey, Janet.
Hi, Robin. How are you?
I'm doing good. Did you survive the storm last night?
Oh, we did. We did. Yeah. We live on the north end of the island, so it was actually fine. We have a lot of, branches down, but not anything bad. So
we're in Indigo Run, and we had a lot of debris. We had a tree on the side of our house, a branch almost hit the side of our house. So a neighbor just came over about an hour ago with his chainsaw and it was just so sweet and helped, kind of chop it up. And so we're good, just debris everywhere, but we're blessed.
Well, real men feel really that it really helps their testosterone if they get to use the power tools they spend a fortune on that they never get to use.
Right. So how have you been?
Well, we're really good. Jim's son, my husband's son, and daughter-in-law and granddaughter, 6-year-old granddaughter, were here, and we had 2 weeks ago when they left, I guess 2 weeks ago today, and we had great weather, and we have a really nice community pool here, and Emily 6 could just live in the water, so it just couldn't have been better. And I kept thinking, I'm so glad we live here. I'm so glad we live here.
I know. It's such a blessing. And I was just telling you earlier, something I had planned on doing when I retired 5 years ago was organize photographs of the family. And so I finally got the big box out yesterday because I knew it was going to be raining or whatever. And I made the piles for the family, Len's brother, sister-in-law, kids. So got them all packaged, ready to go. I'm so proud of myself.
Yeah, I would be proud too. I'd love to get started with that. Robin, I want to mention, I am most excited about the Olympics. I mean, I love the Olympics, and am especially excited this year because Katie Ledecky, who they're saying is the greatest female swimmer, American swimmer in history, is going to really be the star of the Olympics. And I've known Katie since she was born. I taught her mother at University of Minnesota. So it's, I love the Olympics, but it's especially cool when I remember when Katie was born, so anyway, I can't wait to see it. Are you looking forward to it?
I am. There's something about the pride, the American pride, and the music, and then stories of the various Olympians and how they got there and the challenges they faced. So I'm very excited. I love both the Winter and the Summer Olympics. And we've got questions and our polling for our members as you all join in. We'll again meet Mary Alice Monroe at 5 o'clock. Janet will be doing our interview. But until then, we're going to ask you all some questions about COVID. But let's start with something uplifting, the Olympics. That actually, the opening ceremony is on Friday, July the 23rd. So our first question in our poll today is, how much are you going to be watching the Olympics? All right. Are you going to be watching every day? Quite a bit. How about only a little? And then some of you might not watch it at all. So just take your cursor and click on the button there and answer this question, so we get to know what you're thinking about as we prepare to watch. I believe it's 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, I'm not sure, of the Summer Olympics. So what are you saying?
It's just a little over 2 weeks. So I'm in the glued category, which is a whole lot, like glued to the TV. And I think, Robin, you are too.
Yes.
But what we find from our audience today is everyone's going to watch some of it. No one wants to admit that they're not at all watching it. And the majority of people say they're going to watch it either quite a bit or a whole lot. So, so that's, that's
very positive. Yes.
it is positive because it's such, it only happens once every 4 years. So, you got to go for it while it's on.
Well, and this year is really a special year because you're right, every 4 years, but we didn't have it last year. And so
Yeah.
now it's really been 5 for the Summer Olympics. And I just saw on the news this morning, as everybody probably did, I don't know if they're going to have spectators, and they're also calling like a state of emergency. They're going to maybe not allow alcohol to be sold in some of the restaurants because of perhaps some COVID issues going on. So there's still some unanswered questions about spectators and all the venues there and all the entertainment surrounding the Olympics in Tokyo. So
Well, undoubtedly, Robin, the Olympics is going to be full of athletes who get pulled because they're positive, and
right.
they're going to be watching that. We're going to have teams like soccer or something where a bunch of people get it. I mean, it's definitely going to upset the ongoing nature of the Olympics. Although I would assume, the vast majority of the athletes are vaccinated, which makes a huge difference.
Right. Yes, it is going to be different, but it's still going to be exciting. And I'm just so glad that they're having it.
Yes, I am too.
I've seen some signs saying, let's not have it this year, boycott the Olympics, whatever, actually in Tokyo. But I'm glad they're moving forward. And I know I can't imagine training for so long and then just having that letdown last summer. Then you have to wait a whole year. So it's going to be great. Let's go on to our next question.
I want to comment on that, Robin.
Okay.
We have a friend here who was on the Olympic yachting team or sailing team
Right.
in I think it's 1976, which was when Carter pulled us from going to the Russian Olympics, and he's got the uniform and everything, and he never got to go.
Oh, wow.
And it's his big regret all these years. He's in his 70s now that he made the Olympic team and never got to participate. So you can imagine. So anyway.
All right. So our next question in our poll, Janet, is about what are your favorite activities, sports, events to watch? So we have some choices for you. So the first one would be, I just really like watching the opening and closing ceremonies, or no, I might prefer swimming and diving, or track and field, or the gymnastics. That's the highlight of the Summer Olympics, or the team sports like soccer and baseball and basketball, or just anything else. So you've got a lot of choices there, ladies. Go ahead and click on what you would enjoy watching the most as the Olympics begins in a couple of weeks. So are we getting some responses, Janet?
We are, and our 2 most popular responses are swimming and diving and gymnastics.
Yes.
Probably no surprise.
No.
And now somebody else just voted in and said opening and closing ceremonies. So lots of choices here.
Yes. Well, I think I told you yesterday that I love diving.
Yes, they screwed me up.
That, diving is my favorite because I love just, of course, the athleticism of that. I love the diving board that moves, and then of course the platform when they're up so high and they do the pikes and the swan dives and the flips and it's just, and of course gymnastics. All those young girls are like 4'9" or whatever. They're like little packages of muscle.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And I have to say, we were blessed to go to the Olympics in Atlanta.
Yes.
And of all the events, the coolest event in a way for us to go to was synchronized swimming. Because for some reason, I don't know how this happened, but the audience was divided kind of into nationality. So you had the French together, you had the Germans together, you had the Brazilians together. And so it really felt like an international event because every time, the team would come out, and we didn't, the United States team did not win a medal, but it just felt so international. It was great.
I love synchronized swimming. I think that is the coolest thing. So do they still have, I guess they still have it, right?
Yes. And those women are such athletes.
Oh my gosh. That they have to, do everything exactly together and then under the water and then up and then.
Yes.
All right. So let's move on. We could talk forever, Janet. Let's go on to, as we mentioned, Mary Alice Monroe will be with us in just a few minutes at 5 o'clock. Her new book, The Summer of Lost and Found. is her latest edition. And and it actually takes place during COVID. And so that's what our question has to deal with now. So our last question is, how much have all of you been reading during COVID? So just about doubled. You've increased your reading over these last 14, 15 months, 50%, about the same as before COVID. And then the final choice is you've actually read less. So I'm really anxious to see. I think everybody has read more. I don't know if they've read twice as much. So what are people saying, Janet?
Well, Mary Alice will be thrilled to hear this. I'd like a couple more people to vote just to, because we have a lot of people who haven't voted yet. And just to remind you, just put your cursor up by your answer, because I want to make sure we get an accurate answer, because we're going to be talking to Mary Alice Monroe about how reading will be forever changed as a result of COVID. But I have to tell you, I'm thrilled, and you'd probably be thrilled. 100% of the people said it increased by at least double or 50%. So
Oh, wow.
Everybody on today has said their reading's gone up by between 50 and 100%.
And I'm surprised. We've had more time. And of course, as things began to open up, then we start getting involved in our activities and going to events. But basically, we had a year of being at home, being shut in, if you will. So we had a lot more time and time to spend with our immediate family, time to read, time to just enjoy, whatever we enjoy doing, whether it's watching a movie or reading or just sewing, whatever it might be. So it has been really a time of reflection when you think about the year of COVID and the pandemic. So we do like to get your recommendations. If you have a book, a novel, whether it's historical fiction, nonfiction, fiction, whatever that you've read during this period or this summer so far, or maybe a book that you would like to read, or maybe a book that your book club has just started reading, go ahead to the chat button, which is either at the bottom of your screen if you have a laptop, or at the top, and just go ahead in the chat section and just give us your recommendation as to what you've read, colleague has read, a friend, neighbor, whatever, and we can share those recommendations with each other. So are we getting a few recommendations, Janet?
We're still waiting for some recommendations, but I do want to remind people that we're so excited that we're able to respond to not everyone, but to a WAHI member's request. So for example, I'm delighted that Bobby Helbig has just joined me as the co-director, the co-chair of this author series. And Bobby's now booking authors. She's doing a great job. And she just booked Sarah Penner, who wrote The Lost Apothecary, for January of 2022. So that was based on member feedback. So keep in mind that if you recommend an author, we're going to be trying to reach out to them. We did have one author that we contacted that wanted a very big check, and we tried to explain that our check was actually zero. So we can't accommodate everybody, but we're excited that we're able to respond to members' requests. So Susan Fischel said she loved Four Winds and Surviving Savannah. And of course, we just did Surviving Savannah, and I've recommended that to a lot of people. So that's terrific.
I'm excited about Surviving Savannah too. I have it. Remember, I had not read it yet, but I'm going to take it up to the mountains. We leave next week, and I'm excited to take that and some of the other books that we've had authors on our author series with on. I'm really, really excited to really sit back and relax.
So I'll see you in a few minutes, Robin.
Okay, Jen, thank you. So ladies, it is 5 o'clock. It is the golden hour, which means it is time for our Women's Association of Hilton Head Islands author series for 2021. I'm Robin Zimmerman, and I serve as your opener and your closer. Janet Porter, of course, is our interviewer of this month's featured novelist, Mary Alice Monroe. And her book is called The Summer of Lost and Found. And it came out in May. It's going blockbusters. Of course, she's a best-selling New York Times author. She has written the Beach House series, and we had her, I don't know if you remember, but we had her in May of 2020 as our inaugural author for the author series for WAHI. She did a great job then, and we brought her back because of her new book, and excited to to have Janet Porter interview her. We do want to remind everyone that this is a webinar, which means that you can see us, but we cannot see you, but we want you to participate. And so the way to participate is to use that chat button or that icon on your laptop or your iPad or your phone, whatever device you are using, and just chat in if you're having technical difficulties, if you have a question that you would like Janet to ask. And remember, Nancy Fish is our communications team chair for WAHI, and she is also on the line, and she will kind of move those questions through to Janet and kind of handle all the technical issues and challenges that perhaps we might have, but certainly questions for our author. Again, Mary Alice Monroe is our featured author. We do want to thank Bobby Hilbig for joining us on our team. She will be assisting, as Janet said earlier, with selecting our authors, and we're always looking for recommendations. So with that, I'm going to bring in our interviewer extraordinaire, Janet Porter. Janet, it's good to see you for this July edition of the WAHI Author Series for 2021. How are you doing?
It's good. I'm good. It's nice to know you're an extraordinaire at anything, you know. Right. Chef extraordinaire, swimmer extraordinaire. None of those things I'm good at. So I'm glad I'm good at this one. So thank you, Robin.
Yes. Well, I'll talk to you in a little bit. Enjoy the interview.
So hello, everybody. We're glad you could join us again today. For many of you, I know Mary Alice Monroe needs no introduction. She's kind of the grande dame of, Southern authors. And we were blessed with the fact that she was our inaugural speaker. I remember last year we had 118 people register in May of 2020. She was our pilot project. We hadn't done anything on WAHI virtually. So this was our first experiment, and we were so thrilled that we had 118 people sign up. Many of you probably were at that session and are still loyal followers to this day. And that when we met last time, she had written the 6th book in the Beach series, and this is the 7th book, The Summer of Lost and Found. So this picks up with the Rutledge family, and we're going to be talking to her about that. She sold 7.5 million books worldwide, and she's won tons of accolades. Her best-selling novel, The Beach House, was made into a Hallmark Hall of Fame movie. And I think she's very excited to this day to be co-creator and co-host of the weekly web show and podcast Friends in Fiction. And we're gonna chat in about how to get on that every week if you're interested, because that features best-selling authors, many of whom we've met this year: Marriott K. Andrews, Christy Woodson Harvey, Kristen Harmel, and Patty Callahan Henry. And the only one we haven't gotten is Mary Kay Andrews. We have to see what's going on there, but we're gonna talk about a little bit about that too. But Mary Alice is captivated by the beauty and fragility of the wild habitat that surrounds all of us. We're so fortunate. In particular, the coastal Southern landscape is a strong and important focus of many of her novels. She's especially proud, and well, she should be, to be a 20-plus year state certified volunteer with the Island Turtle Team on Isle of Palms. And that's the group that first sparked her love for loggerhead sea turtles and is the inspiration for the Beach House series. She's also published 2 books, and I want to give a shout out to the fact that these complement her environmental themes. And next week, she has her first middle grade book called The Islanders. So if you love her and you have grandchildren or great nieces and nephews or whatever, think about buying that book for them, because that's her first book that's at the middle grade level. So now, Mary Alice, I'd love for you to join us. Hi, nice to see you again.
I made it. Hello, everybody. It's so nice to see you.
It's great to be here. And you're on the Isle of Palms right now?
I'm on the Isle of Palms. This is my office, and my dogs are now just perking up because they heard my voice and I'm activated. So they're like, okay, let's play. So I hope they don't bark during the interview.
Oh, that's okay. Everybody who loves wildlife has to have dogs, right?
I have. Oh my goodness. I love Cavaliers. A lot of my readers know that in fact, I put one in. Luna is my little Cavalier Blenheim, and she's actually in the book, The Summer of Lost and Found. And if you follow my Facebook page or my Instagram, you'll see that Cosmo, my little tricolor, is now the daddy of 6 gorgeous puppies. And they've been keeping me busy. So I love and then I have a Bernese Mountain Dog. So, oh yes, we have dogs.
And what's going to happen to all those puppies?
Well, most of them are already spoken for. I breed with a woman at Laurelwind Cavaliers, and she's on Johns Island. And we both are very concerned about health of puppies. So we only breed from what we call merit breeding. So yes, conformation, they're champions, but they are very healthy dogs. And we try to skirt any of the diseases that unfortunately hit Cavaliers quite often. I think, I'm a big rescue dog supporter as well. So I really love to support, I don't like just to have a lot of puppies. I always make that really clear, but I do believe in helping really wonderful breeds stay healthy. And that's what I do. So go check out my Instagram. You'll see my new puppies.
Yeah, I love Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. I think they're
Oh,
that's the dog I've always wanted.
Oh, you should see this litter. Oh, Janet, it's pretty special.
Well, I may be in touch.
Go check them out on Instagram. They're all there. They're really cute. They're 6 weeks, and they're all tries. And so we sometimes have Blenheims and we sometimes have tries. We don't do whole colors.
Yeah,
to me, they're like cats. Well, like here, this is Luna. Here we go. Oh my gosh, we're off the topic. This is Luna, and she's in the book. So y'all, when you read Summer of Lost and Found, this is my Luna. I'm gonna say hello. Ooh,
How big is she? Looks big though.
She's a bigger dog. Now she's about 18 pounds, 19 pounds.
Wow.
She's still little, but she's bigger than, say, Cosmo, who is, let me show you. But anyway, Luna's in the book, and this is Cosmo. Come here, Cosmo. He was the one who was, and he's a little more little. And he's about 14 pounds, 15 maybe. And he's a super stud. He's the daddy. I guess. He had 6 puppies, and that's a lot for a Cavalier. But this is called tricolor.
Yeah, yeah. And tricolors are gorgeous.
Which I think are really pretty. And then the Bernese Mountain Dog just looks like a large tricolor. Okay, all that to say, Luna's in the book. It's the first time I put a Cavalier in a book.
Well, Mary Alice, people have asked me when I've been at WAHI meetings how much this is scripted and how much we are kind of extemporaneous. So talking about the King Charles Spaniels is a little extemporaneous.
Yes, and I know we all love dogs. And I always say when people come into my house, this is my office. And if you look in the corners, those little dust balls. And I say, love me, love my dogs. That's how I look.
Exactly.
Anybody who doesn't know me of course I have animals. I have canaries in the other room, right? I would have goats if I could.
I like goats.
Yes.
So,
but I spend a lot of time with the wild animals. That's my heart too.
So I think we're going to talk a lot about the writing process with you because this book was so different. But before we do that, for you've said the process was so different about writing during COVID, and we'll talk about why in a minute. But talk about the moment 27 novels ago when you decided, okay, I'm not going to dabble in short stories. I'm going to write a book, a novel, a whole book. What was the epiphany that you thought I can do this?
Oh, well, it was never a question of whether I could do it. It was always a question of time. And I was teaching at the university and I was pregnant. And the doctor basically put me to bed, said, you can have a baby or continue teaching, but you can't do both. And I loved teaching. So I was put to bed and my husband who's a psychiatrist, and I love of my life, but he took the TV out of my bedroom. And I thought, I'm in bed for 3 months and you took the TV out. And I know, I admit I do love TV. And, but I know he said, Mary Alice, for as long as I've known you, you've wanted to have the time to write a novel. That was my heart. And you have that time now. So I got a good old, see if I have one here, yellow pad, because I had to lie prone. I couldn't even sit up, and a pencil. And I wrote the draft of my first novel. And it took me, so I say I gave birth to a baby in a book. So I had the draft, but selling a book and finessing a book and learning craft is another thing. I had studied writing in college, and I was in journalism. So I knew about writing, but there's still a special sense of finding your voice that just takes time. So I joined a writers group, and I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time. And excuse me, we didn't have Google. We didn't have all the stuff we have now to connect. You just basically just went to the library and asked, are there writers groups around? So I did. I went to the Bethesda Library, and they said, well, actually, someone's coming to speak from a writers group on Wednesday. So 7 o'clock, I was there, maybe 6 people, and a skinny blonde woman was talking, and she was very captivating. Her name was Nora Roberts.
Oh, I know Nora Roberts. I mean, I don't know her personally, you do, but I know she is.
And so, but she wasn't the famous Nora Roberts. She was published by Harlequin at the time, had done several silhouettes, I think, I don't remember. But at any rate, she was a member of a writers group, the Washington Romance Writers. And back then, there were no writers groups. I mean, this was women supporting women, no matter what you wrote. This group was full of mystery writers, horror writers, sci-fi writers, romance writers, just we were writers. And I became friends with her, and her star started to rise really fast. And I was not in a hurry because I was still finding my voice, as well as I was the mother of 3 young babies. And that was that time of life. And eventually, I knew I had to go back to work or sell a book. And I had a contract in one hand, and about 2 weeks I had to make my mind up, and my book was out, and I got the phone call. My book had sold. And it was, I mean, I never looked back. They paid me so little money. I probably could have paid them the money that they paid me for my first novel, but I was so happy. I would have paid them the money. So it was Mira, and that was The Long Road Home, and it took place in my farm in Vermont. And I think it's a first book, and it was the 1980s. So yes, that was a long time ago. And I think I learned a lot, and the structure, but if you read it, you can hear my voice. And I love to look back. Like I remember I loved Rosamund Pilcher, still do. But I remember reading The Shell Seekers and then going back and reading everything she ever wrote.
Yes.
And from her early days with Meals and Boom, which is Harlequin in England, her voice was there. She wrote shorter stories, less complex, but the beauty of her writing. You know, I always say Rosamund Pilcher could talk about making toast, and you'd want to read it because it was the people talking over the toast that you wanted to hear. So I think if you read that book, you will see it's my voice, and it takes place on a sheep farm. So the animals are there too. And I never looked back. But it was the beach house that changed the course of my career and my intention as an author and the books that I wrote.
So what is it you do? We had a chance to chat in advance, and I know you're doing some research on upcoming books that you have in mind. So what is it that brings you the greatest joy about writing a book? I mean, is it the plot? Is it the character development? Is it incorporating a passion, like the Beach series is so much about the passion for loggerhead turtles? Is it the research? I mean, what part of it do you most love? The ideas.
The bubbling of ideas. I mean, friends joke that you don't want to live in here because there's so much going on all the time. I'm always coming up with someone. I can never understand anyone saying, I don't know what to write about. It's like, oh my God, I can't write fast enough because I have so many stories I want to tell. And that's part of why I work as hard as I do. For me, the spark of an idea is very intuitive, and it's always species bound. I don't come up with a story. This book I'm writing now was a little different, as well as The Summer of Lost and Found was a little different. So maybe I'm turning an edge, but up for the last 20 years, I chose a species. That was an intention. After the Beach House, when I wrote about the sea turtles, knowing at that point when I wrote that book, I said, I want my books to reflect an awareness of this species, this loggerhead sea turtle. I wanted people to be aware of how they could help them along our coast. I had modest ambition. I just wanted my readers to know what lights out for turtles meant. I wanted them to know if they were on the beach and saw a hatchling, what to do. I wanted them to understand why light orientation was so distressing for sea turtles.
Yeah.
Because I really was on the beach with people. I'm a turtle team member, and we'd sit at night and people would really care. The questions that they asked told me they wanted to know the answers because they wanted to help. And that was inspiring to me as the writer. So I changed the way I wrote. Rather than write from archetypal themes, I always said my story comes from what I learned from the species. So with the sea turtle, and I know y'all in Hilton Head know turtles.
We do.
So let me give you an example. So when you have a sea turtle returns to the beach of its birth, is what we used to believe 20 years ago. Now we know it's still pretty close to the area. And she returns at maturity to lay her eggs. So some 20 plus years later, she comes back, she digs her nest. She's a reptile. She digs her 20 inches down, lays 60 to 120, 50 eggs, covers them up, tries to camouflage it with sand, goes back out to the sea, and she never returns to the nest. And it's predator glut. That's her biological model. But I take that and I say, okay, that's what I've learned about this interesting reptile. So I want to write a story about a woman who returns home after being gone a long time, some 20 years. So, we're mammals. We nurture our young. So if a sea turtle abandons the nest, I want to write about a woman who felt abandoned. Someone was going to be pregnant. We knew that because there's eggs everywhere with turtles. So I'm pulling out ideas, and then I create a novel based on research, Charleston history, the people, and that was the Beach House. And it changed that because of its enormous success. And I'm so grateful if anyone out there bought that first book. Thank you. Thank you. Because I knew, there it is. This is the first, I keep it, it's a very special book. This is the first Beach House. It wasn't a hardcover. It was a little mass market. The little book that could. No one had written anything like it. And I gave it a kiss and sent it out. I was under contract. I knew it was special. And it was my first New York Times bestseller. But what it did for me was it allowed me to write more books in the same vein. And in fact, I think one of the ways for anyone who can find this book, it's a real collector's. This is the author picture. It's my turtle team. So if you find this little mass market in a used bookstore, hang on to it because it's worth something. And
wow.
I took off, and so I knew my books could be, in all seriousness, a force for good. I knew that I was on a mission. So I determined that I would set books that were against an endangered species or like sweetgrass, an item that some sort of a issue in the Low Country that was important. And I would tell a story because I believe in the power of story, that we're much more engaged when we learn something emotionally through people than through nonfiction. We need nonfiction, but I wanted to hook the unsuspecting reader with a good story. That's writing.
Yeah. Mary Alice, I have a couple things. First of all, Beach House should come with a warning to the reader that once you read Beach House, you're going to have to read the whole series because it is so great. It is so gripping. That's the first thing.
I love those people.
But the beauty of going to a webinar like this and hearing an author that you love speak is what you just said. I did not get all of those parallels between the human story and the turtle story. So I knew, that Lovey and the original character, loved sea turtles. And I learned you accomplished the objective of teaching me as a reader a lot about turtles, but I wasn't drawing the parallel to all the characters. So you saying that makes me want to go back and read the book. And I think that's the beauty of being able to attend a webinar like this and
Mhm.
hear from an author, you go, oh, and then you go, oh, now I want to reread that.
Now
you
I
know?
wonder, because you get more in it. And honestly, every time, I don't write a beach house series, a book a year. I've written over the last 20 years. Can you believe, Janet? It's been 20 years. And there are 7 books. So I returned when I had something to say. When we started founding the Sea Turtle Hospital, Mary Alice, come on, we got a turtle. We're going to start this hospital. So I jumped in. That was my, ooh. So how can I tell this story? This was the second one. I thought, gee, I am going to go back to the Rutledge family because this makes sense. So that was the second book. So then when the
That's
third
right.
one came, maybe a trilogy, that's me back there. Whenever I had something more to say about what was going on our beaches, that I felt if it interested me, I trusted my instinct that it would be of interest to my readers. And I wrote another beach house series. And over the course of time, I've enjoyed watching especially Kara, who was 40 in the first book, returning home to Lovey, and Lovey passes and she inherits the beach house. And we watch Kara go through 20 years. She's almost 60 in the summer of Lost and Found.
Yes, and
And
I actually thought that was about Kara's age.
yeah,
And and obviously, when you said you knew you had something you wanted to say, you obviously wanted to say something. Let's talk specifically about the summer of Lost and Found and about the
yes.
writing process during COVID, because obviously you were inspired to write something about what it's like to live through a pandemic, and
Mhm.
and how that impacts the environment, not
Right.
just people. But I think you've also made interesting comments about how writing this book was completely different writing process for you than any other book you've written before. So I think that audience would be really interested in hearing about that.
Well, it's perfect because you just asked me what my usual process was. So here I am. I had just come back from South America and got COVID. Didn't know it was COVID. I caught a virus because we didn't have tests. And it wasn't too bad. It was about 2 weeks of being ill. And I was pretty exhausted. And it was coming to April. I'm sorry, I can tell you exactly the date. No, it was March 27th.
You were
And I went out.
you were very early then.
Oh yeah, well, I was docked next to what was called the death ship. In retro, we didn't know that. I'm lucky to be here. So I was sick, but nothing too frightening. Just I know now for sure it was COVID, but of course we had no tests. So I just got better, and I went up north to open up my house. I have a house up in Tryon, North Carolina, and I was with my niece who had been taking care of my animals. And we're opening the house, and the shelter-in-place order came down in that first week of April. And I stayed up there for a while. And then my children moved to Isle of Palms to live in my house out of the city. You all have beach houses. Your children love to visit. Only mine took over. So I stayed in North Carolina, and I'm sitting up there going, okay, I guess I'm not going to go out to research any species. I guess I'm staying put. And I knew I wanted to write another book in the Beach House series soon about the next generation. I wanted to, because the last book on Ocean Boulevard, Kara had come full circle. It was a beautiful book for me to write. I really loved giving Kara all her just rewards.
And that's the book we talked with you about last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
On Ocean Boulevard.
I loved that book because it was just a full circle after 20 years. So this time I thought I wanted to have the next generation, but I wasn't prepared to do it. But here I am in North Carolina, sheltered in place, and I realized, well, now is the time. But I was stymied what to write about. So I took lots of walks, and I realized that we are in we survived, all of us, an epic moment in history. This is a period of time that will be studied for 20 years. And this actually, interestingly enough, is also the first book out of the gate that got published. I'm kind of proud of that. It almost killed me to write the book, but it was the first one, and I had a lot to say by the time it came out. I decided to write not about the pandemic, but use it as the backdrop, because I write about families And what family better to write about than the one I knew so well, the Rutledge family. So I decided to put the generations together. And as I lived through the experience of COVID, and I observed the other ones, because that's what a naturalist does. That's what I do with the wild. I go out and I keep my eyes open, my ears open, my mouth shut, and I observe and I take notes and I study. So I did this with families, the human species, while I wrote this book. What I didn't count on was that my outline, and I'm a structuralist, I know my story, I threw it in the garbage. It was no good for me at all. I had to be what we call a pantser, which is to write by the seat of my pants. And what I did was to try to share what I went through in my personal life and to parallel it to the characters in the novel. And it kept changing because, you know, in April, we thought it would be over by summer. Remember?
Yeah.
It wasn't over. And then by midsummer, we started talking about variants. And we were getting really afraid if we were going to die, the older generation. And that's when I began to notice in different generations, we were experiencing this sheltering, this COVID experience differently. Older people were really concerned about their health and whether they would possibly die. Mortality became a question, became an issue and a worry. For the young people, their lives were completely stopped.
Yes.
They couldn't even date. They were out of jobs. They were back at home. I mean, how many of you out there were like me and had, you know, someone move into your house because they were out of a job, especially young ones. By December, I was pulling my hair out because I was writing again in real time, changing the story. And every book I write, after I study an animal in particular, it's more than just the story and what evolves to the characters. There's something I want to say, and it's a hard one, dig deep. What do I want to say to my readers? What did I learn through this experience? And then I portray it through character, setting, plot, and dialogue. And I was getting scared, Janet, because by the end, I was going so fast. And I had to hand a book in, and I took such long walks. And it wasn't until I remember I came home, must have been July or August, I came back to Isle of Palms. My children finally left my house. And I was back with the turtle team, sitting out on the beach at night with Barb Bergorf, who a lot of you, she does the photographs for my picture books. And we are on the turtle team and we're waiting for the sand to shift, for the nests to emerge. And it actually is my favorite scene in the book. And this is what changed everything for me as a writer. And some of you know this. You're sitting on the beach at night and it was a really dark night. And it's important for us to be on the beach. In Hilton Head, you have so many more nests than we do on Isle of Palms and Sullivan's. So we have the luxury of midwifing our nests. And Barb and I were sitting at a nest and it was so dark that you couldn't see the stars or the moon. It was that kind of thick. So we needed to be there because we knew that light disorientation could occur for the hatchlings. And it's late summer and the nights get chilly and you can't see the ocean, but you can hear it. The muffled, soft roar. The air's chilly and it's about midnight. And there's something that happens when you're out on the beach at night that is introspective. You know, I think Barb and I always have good conversations, or when the team's out, we share stories. It's a time of intimacy, sharing. And I realized that was when when Kara and Linnea, the heroines of the novel, would have this heart-to-heart conversation. And in the story, I'll go back in the very beginning, when Linnea loses her job, she's the next generation. We met her at 8 years of age in the beach house. She's 25 and she's renting the beach house. And she calls Karen and says, I'm on furlough from the aquarium. I have no job. And Kara says, don't worry, I have your back. My mother, this is what the beach house is. This is the legacy of my mother took care of me. I took care of people. Now I'm taking care of you. This is what women do. And I'm passing the torch to you. So throughout the whole book, Linnea is offering people a chance to stay in the house, And it's all like that little mushroom in the children's story. Do you remember the one with the rain and all the critters are coming under? And love was the rain, actually, in this book. So, but here's the thing. Throughout the course of the story, there's a love triangle. There's a lot going on, a lot of pathos. But Linnea is losing herself because she's giving. And isn't that what women always do? They take care of others. And she's trying to make a decision between man A, man B. Is it John or Gordon? And she can't. And Kara's finally, here we are on the beach, and it's getting towards the climax of the story. And I'm not ruining it for you if you haven't read it yet. She's saying to her, it isn't about a choice between two men. You have to take care of yourself first. This is good selfish. What do you need? Take care of your health, take care of your goals, take care of what is it you want, and the rest will come. And that was when the light bulbs went off for me individually as the author as well. I was back on the beach. I knew what I wanted. I was so grateful to be sitting there with my friend. And we're getting towards the end of this book, a couple months of writing. And I realized what the message of the whole book was, which was to live each day as if it's your last day, to leave, not to take it for granted. And I have studied this, and you've studied it, Janet, forever. Eckhart Tolle has written about it since the 60s, live each day to the fullest. I never got it until I endured the pandemic, because I always planned, what am I going to do next week? What's my next book going to be? What's always in the future? The pandemic made us sit back and think, you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Who expected it? So enjoy right now. I'm really having a good time talking to you, Janet. It's us, just us, and all of you out there. This is now, and tomorrow will bring what tomorrow brings. So that living that novel and making those realizations while I was writing the book took everything out of me. It really did. But I think I pulled it off, and I'm really proud of the book because it's what we went through. And I hope for book conversations out there, talk about what you went through. I think you're going to read the book and remember, oh my God, I forgot about that. Oh my gosh, oh yes, quarantine. Oh my gosh, that was a big deal in 2020. So anyway, it was illuminating, but I'll never do it again. I like knowing my characters, doing my research, having a structure, writing towards climax and resolution. I know how to write a book. And I'm back to structure, but I'm glad I did it.
Well, you've said, Mary Alice, that you have the plot, the setting, the characters, the theme, even the ending figured out before you put pen to paper. And so that must have been very disconcerting.
That's why.
Know where you were going.
That's why that night on the beach was important, but I still hadn't completely figured it out. I figured out where the character was going, but it wasn't until like November, Thanksgiving, and I had to hand the book in, that I really was panicking. What is this book? What do I want to say? And it just all flushed through, and I got it. And it changed my life. And I question everybody out there. I saw the question you asked, which I thought was such a good question, Janet. How has the pandemic changed your life? You asked about reading, But overall, overarching that is, what did you learn from this experience like no other? This was wartime.
Yes.
This was wartime. Do you know shelter in place is a phrase that's used in wartime?
Right.
It
Right.
means do not evacuate. Stay in place until the all clear is given. So we had heightened emotions. I mean, I think all of us went through a lot,
Yes.
and we made it through. We survived.
And I
you
think
know?
actually that's one of the reasons, we have a lot of book groups in Wahi. I think there's 7 or 8. Betty and I were just on our Zoom book group meeting last night, picking our next books. And I think this book does serve as a good backdrop for that larger discussion
Yes.
about what was it like for you, and how have you come out a different person? And so
Yes.
I'd like you to comment briefly on how do you think the relationship with readers and readership and books and everything will be forever changed as a result of COVID?
Oh, well, certainly the discussion of books has definitely changed. We have seen, some of us had COVID brain, including myself, where I found it difficult to read a novel on pages. And I remember in April, when it was still chilly, I started listening to audiobooks. I love audiobooks. I read my own audiobooks, but I still love, good old hardcover in my hands, right? But I couldn't. So I think many people are now listening to audiobooks more than ever before. The surge is really high. And I think that's because we've clued into how valuable it is to be able to take a car trip, or stir your spaghetti sauce, or do your gardening while listening to a book. I think that's changed. Number one is virtual events like this. When we started Friends in Fiction, which you asked me to talk about, it was Mary Kay and Patty and I were worried because we all had spring books and we didn't know what was happening, not just to our books because all the tours were canceled, but the bookstores. These booksellers are our friends now, and we know that our coming to the independent bookstores is their livelihood because they do events, as we've done for Wahi. So we started, I think it was Mary Kay who said, let's go on Zoom and let's talk about it. And I'm like, what Zoom? What it was. My 18-year-old, I'm sorry, had to tell me, here you go, we'll fix it up for you. I didn't know what it was. And so we got Zoom started. And then I invited Christy Whitson Harvey and Kristen Harmel because they were my fellow gallery authors. I knew them, and the other two didn't know them. And I said, well, let's just call, let's just talk, because I knew their tours were canceled. So we started talking on Zoom with Rosé Wine. And I think it was Christy who said, let's put it on Facebook. And we thought, well, maybe 5 people will show up. Sure, why not? We didn't know any better. So we did a Facebook Live, and we did it on Mary Kay's Facebook page. And if you ever want to have a good laugh, go to our Friends in Fiction website where you can see the old shows, and you'll see how, I think Mary Kay still tells people she was in her pajamas. And we all had pajama bottoms on and a pretty blouse because, it's all you see is that. And I remember going from room to room to room, trying to figure out where the reception was best. We didn't know what a ring light was. We've gotten quite polished, and we did not realize that we were filling a void, that we became a community for readers. And we were having 1,000, 2,000 viewers each week on Wednesday night at 7:00. And it started going to 20,000, 25,000, 30. We're at 47,000 people now. And it's huge. And by the end of summer, we started inviting other guests. And the first guest with Kristen Hanna, we started inviting our friends. And my friend was Delia Owens, and no one can get Delia Owens, but she came on and she talked about Where the Crawdads Sing. And after that, everyone started saying yes. So we have been very fortunate, both with people we know and also some pretty wonderfully talented authors that we don't know, but that we're able to now get to interview for our show. So I invite everyone to join us. It's free. 7:00 Wednesday nights. And we are on Facebook at Friends in Fiction. We are on YouTube. We have a channel. Some people don't like Facebook, so go to YouTube or Parade Magazine. We write essays for Parade Magazine. And so you can see us live there. It's live every Wednesday. And on our website, you can see all the old programs. I think it's changed how I will visit bookstores. Look at what we're doing today, Janet. The virtuals. I do many virtuals, and yet I'm missing people face to face too.
Yeah.
I want to come back to Wahi face to face next time.
We want you to come back to Wahi face to face.
Oh, and I have to tell you, you said it's coming. This is out. And it debuted last week, #2 on the New York Times list. #2. That's
That's
pretty
fabulous. I should have done my homework. I didn't know that.
I'm so proud. This is the Islanders, and it takes place on Deweese Island, which is probably a lot of you know Deweese. It's a little remote island right off Isle of Palms, and it's a nature sanctuary, and you can only access it by ferry. There are no cars allowed, so everyone has to drive a golf cart. No stores or restaurants of any kind. And for the 3 children who go there, it is no Wi-Fi. And my goal to write this book, my husband, the child psychiatrist, always says, unplug your kids, is to get these kids, it's middle grade, so ages 8 to 12, unplugged, and to get them outside, to get them to play. Remember how your mom used to say, get outside, go outside and play. Remember? That's what your mama used to say. I'm bored. Well, go find something to do. Go out.
Yeah.
Well, this was good parenting. This was good parenting, because children need to be almost encouraged, forced a little bit to unplug and to be a little bored, to explore. And we talk about writing journals. The kids get in trouble. There are turtles in it. And it's a beautiful grandson story, grandchild story. Yeah. So anyway, I'm very proud of it.
Well, you should be proud. And we thank you so much. We could talk to you forever, but, and we so appreciate you being our inaugural author. You kicked us off in May 2020, and we're so glad to see you again. And of course, we look forward to your future books. And I want to remind everyone that this is being recorded and will be available on our website. And so anybody who wants to access it for their book group, to stimulate their thinking about what to read next, because what we want to do is support authors like Mary Alice Monroe by buying their books. And so Mary Alice, thank you for joining us. We're going to turn it over to Robin now. Thank you.
Mary Alice, thank you so much. I have a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel too.
Oh my goodness, what kind do you have?
Blenheim. And she,
Blenheim, yeah.
Will be 3, and her name is Shelby, and she's very spoiled.
It's easy to spoil them. They're so sweet, and they're basically love to be on your lap or right at your feet. Yes. In fact, here comes Luna. She saw me look at her, and she'll be in my lap.
I'm looking forward to also getting the Islanders. I have 3 grandsons who are 8, 11, and 12. So
well, it's a great book. I was so thrilled. I mean, I think I must be hitting something, because it debuted at #2, and I was absolutely floored.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And continue writing. And thank you so much for all you've done for Wahi. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and love to everyone out in Hilton Head.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
At this time, I'd like to bring our president in, Betty Hamilton, and she's going to share with us exciting events coming up the rest of this summer and into 21-22. So Betty, it's all yours.
Thank you, Robin and Mary Alice. Oh, thank you so much for the wonderful conversation. And so much of what you said personally that you went through certainly rings true with so many of us as females, and what we do in our lives, maybe what we shouldn't be doing in our lives. But thank you for being with us, and I can't wait to read your book. My first comment, in the couple of seconds I have to run through some things here, is please renew. You all are aware, if you're reading your Wednesday pink paper newsletter e-blast, that renewals are in process. It's a quick and easy things to do online. So please do that so that we can be sure that you're in the directory this year, and that you also are going to be able to sign up for interest groups, which is also happening right now. You can do that also under member resources. So go ahead, and after you renew, sign up for your interest groups. I want to quickly go through a few events that are coming up in July. As you are seeing on your member resources under events, there are a number of water activities that are taking place. Island Head is sponsoring a lot of things that are unique. If you have grandkids, family, whatever, in town this summer, there are a lot of things that you can participate in. July 23rd is a golf 9 and wine. I always want to say that the other way, wine and 9, maybe it should be wine and 9. And the registration is open for that now on under events on member resources. Also on Fridays, and Mary Alice would appreciate this, we have every Friday there's an Audubon guided tour that is this one that's going on during July and through August, actually, is featuring birds and bees and berries and all this interesting stuff. If you've not done one of those guided walks, you sign up online. I encourage you to. I did do one this summer, and I should go back for this one. It was really very engaging, very informative. We have a couple of new and prospective member informationals coming up. July 13th at 10 a.m. in the morning. There will be one at the Island Rec Center community room. And then on July 26th at 4:45, we're going to have one on Zoom so that we can have an opportunity for those new members who work during the day to participate. Then into August, August 23rd, another girls' night out, Salty Dog Cruise from 6 to 8:30 p.m. Registration is now open. There are only 40 spots, 40 tickets available. So you need to be sure you get signed up for that quickly. The last one we had was so much fun. So I encourage you to do that. And there is room. I know a lot of people have family or friends in visiting this summer, and there is room for a few guests on this, but be quick. September 23rd is our fall kickoff luncheon. It will be at Honeyhorn Plantation in the pavilion. We are very pleased that Signature, which is a Surge Catering, the Surge Catering arm, is going to be catering a buffet. Great menu. There will also be an opportunity to do some interest group signups. There will be a limited number of interest group leaders available there, but we will have sign-up sheets. If you didn't do it online, there's your chance to do it in person. Our speaker, we're very, very fortunate to have Dr. Debbie Lines. Robin is going to be introducing her. She is a WHHI TV talk host. She's a psychologist. She's so engaging. You're just going to love her. Just really, she talks about her challenges in life and how she's built resilience. It's really going to be a very worthwhile luncheon for you to attend. So watch for the sign up to start on that. November 4th, we have a fundraiser for the Wahi Charitable Fund that's going to be at the Sculp Creek Boathouse Pavilion. A number of you have attended events there before. It's a Happy Days theme. The menu is going to be around the Happy Days You Remember the TV show. We're going to have a disc jockey playing 50s, 60s, 70s music for dancing, and just going to be a great evening. So watch for the signups to open for these events. And that's about it. There's a lot more going on, but I'm only going to go through the early part of November. Just keep watching your Wednesday newsletter and you will see all of the tremendous activities that are planned for the year ahead. Thank you, Robin. Back to you.
Thank you, Betty. It's so fun that we're going to be able to get together in person through this year. Of course, the author
Absolutely.
series we're on Zoom, but I cannot wait to see everyone and have fellowship and network. And thank you for your leadership, Betty. Good job.
My pleasure.
And thank you all for watching this edition of the Women's Association of Hilton Head Islands author series for 2021. We do want to remind you our next edition will be on August the 12th. And our featured author will be Kristen Harmel. And her new book is called The Forest of Vanishing Stars, The Forest of Vanishing Stars. And it just came out. So we're really excited to feature her in August. So thank you and have a great rest of July, everyone. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.